In every school, there are tales that chill the spine and unsettle the mind, stories that are whispered from one generation of students to the next. Our journey into the eerie begins in an abandoned classroom of an old school, much like the one in our next story. It was once a vibrant place of learning, filled with the sounds of lessons and laughter. But as the years passed, this particular classroom was left forgotten, gathering dust and darkness behind its closed door. Local legend has it that the room was sealed after a series of unexplained events that left even the bravest teachers unnerved. They say that late at night, when the moon casts eerie shadows through the cracked windows, echoes of a past class can still be heard. Desks move slightly as if jostled by invisible students, and chalk scribbles itself on the blackboard in a script no one can decipher. A brave, or perhaps foolhardy janitor once unlocked the door, his curiosity overcoming his fear. Stepping inside, he was met with a chill that sank deep into his bones, and the faint sound of a teacher's voice, stern yet fading, giving a lesson to a class no longer there. The janitor fled, never to speak of it again, but the whispers about the forgotten classroom only grew. Tonight, we take you inside these haunted halls, where the past is not quite past, and the forgotten are not entirely gone. Have you ever heard a whisper with no source, echoing through empty corridors? In the heart of a town steeped in history and shadowed whispers, there stands an old school, a beacon of academic excellence with a rather unsettling past. Its walls have witnessed decades of scholarly pursuits, but as dusk falls and the shadows lengthen, something else stirs within its hallowed halls. On this particular evening, the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows through the Gothic architecture of the school. Most of the students have long since gone home, their laughter and chatter fading with the daylight. However, one diligent student, driven by the looming pressure of upcoming exams, chooses the echoing solitude of the school library to continue his studies. As the clock ticks steadily towards night, the silence grows heavier, almost palpable. It's during these quiet hours that the student, his mind fatigued from hours of revision, first hears it, a faint whisper. The sound is barely audible, like the softest murmur of a distant crowd. Rationalizing it as a trick of his tired mind, he shakes his head and refocuses on his books. But the whispers don't cease. Instead, they grow louder, clearer, yet still incomprehensible. A jumble of syllables that tease the edges of understanding. Curiosity now piqued more than his fear, the student stands, his chair scraping softly against the old wooden floor. He follows the sounds as they lead him down hallways lit only by the moonlight spilling through the windows, each step taking him deeper into parts of the school rarely visited during the day. The whispers guide him to an old section of the building, one known for its creaking floors and the stale scent of dust-covered history. As he approaches a heavy oak door, worn and locked, the whispers suddenly stop. Silence slams down like a physical barrier, leaving the student alone with the pounding of his own heart and the unanswered questions. What secrets lie behind a locked door, known only to the whispering shadows? Imagine a teacher who walks into class and then simply vanishes into thin air. In a small town where every face is familiar and every story is known, there was one tale that still sends shivers down the spine of anyone who dares to remember. This is the story of Miss Eleanor Wright, a history teacher whose passion for the past was as deep as the mysteries she now embodies. Miss Wright was not just any teacher. She was a favorite among students at Oakwood High for her vibrant and engaging methods of teaching. Her lessons were more than just lectures. They were journeys back in time. On a crisp autumn morning, she began her class with a sparkle in her eyes, ready to dive into the local legends that shaped their town's history. As she reached a pivotal point in her story, she realized she needed more visual aids to capture the essence of the tale fully. With a smile, she excused herself to the students and stepped into the adjacent storage closet, a small, cramped space filled with educational materials from decades past. The minutes ticked by, and the classroom's initial buzz of whispered speculations faded into a tense silence. 10 minutes turned into 20, and there was still no sign of Miss Wright. Concern morphed into curiosity, then worry, and finally, into alarm. The school principal was called in, and a thorough search began. Doors were flung open, every closet and corner inspected. The school was put on lockdown, a measure unheard of in such a peaceful town. Police arrived, and the intensity of the search increased. Yet, there was no sign of Miss Wright. It was as if the earth had swallowed her up. The most unsettling clue came from the school's CCTV footage. The cameras positioned in the hallways showed Miss Wright entering the closet, her figure clear and unhurried. But that was it. The footage held no evidence of her ever coming out. It was as though the closet was a portal to another dimension, a black hole within the mundane walls of an ordinary school. Investigations continued for weeks, then months, but no trace of Miss Wright was ever found. The closet was emptied, its contents cataloged and analyzed, but nothing out of the ordinary appeared. It remained, simply, a storage closet, albeit one now shrouded in dark whispers and fearful glances. The story of Miss Wright became a chilling addition to the local legend she once taught with such enthusiasm. Students and teachers alike speak of her in hushed tones, wondering if the tales of the past she so loved might have reached out and claimed her as one of their own. If walls could talk, what tales of vanished souls would they tell? Do you dare to play a game that starts at the stroke of midnight? This is the challenge that beckoned a group of high school seniors, hungry for adventure and a story to tell. Little did they know their pursuit of thrill would lead them into the depths of an eerie legend that clung to their school like the cobwebs in its neglected attic. The game was simple, or so it seemed. As the clock tower chimed 12 times, marking the arrival of a deep velvety night, the students gathered at the school's entrance. Armed with nothing but flashlights, a list of cryptic tasks, and a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation, they stepped into the dark, echoing halls of their familiar daytime haven, now transformed into a sprawling maze of shadows. The rules were whispered from one to another. Travel through the school to designated spots, perform the tasks, and whatever happens, do not, under any circumstances, stop playing until the game directs you to. The first destination was the science lab, where the flicker of Bunsen burners in the night was replaced by the soft glow of their flashlights. Here they were to write their deepest fears on a piece of paper and leave it under a microscope. A simple task, yet the air grew inexplicably cold as each student scribbled their anxieties down, the chill seeming to seep into their bones. With each step to the next location, the atmosphere thickened. Soft whispers seemed to float down the empty corridors, a murmur like the rustling of leaves on a windless night. Was it their imagination, or was something whispering back from the dark? Their journey led them to the old music room. Inside, amidst the dust-covered pianos and silent drums, their task was to play a melody, any melody, on the piano. But as the first notes trembled in the air, so did a shadow dart across the room. They told themselves it was just a trick of the light, a collective hallucination fueled by the adrenaline and the night's eerie spell. The game grew more intense, each task feeding the creeping dread that something was amiss. They found themselves in the library, where the task was to find a book with a red cover and read a passage aloud. The words, a forgotten poem about spirits wandering lost and vengeful, seemed to echo too long in the vast, book-lined halls, and then the unmistakable sound of footsteps trailing them, always just out of sight, quickening with their own quickening pulses. But it was the final task that would haunt them forever. At exactly 3 in the morning, they arrived at the gymnasium. Here, in the reflection of the large wall-length mirror, each was to confront their reflection, to stare into their own eyes and ask for protection from the spirits they had stirred. One by one they looked, seeing only their pale, frightened faces staring back, until it was James's turn. As he stepped forward, the group's flashlight beams converged on the mirror, and what reflected back was a visage of horror. Not James's face, but a dark, formless shadow stood behind him, its presence an icy, suffocating void. Panic erupted. The game was abandoned, the tasks forgotten as they fled, stumbling and breathless, out into the safety of the night's cool embrace. They never spoke of what happened, not really, but it was clear that something had followed them back from the shadowy depths of the game. Sleep became elusive, filled with nightmares, mirrors, a source of dread, and the school, a monument to their haunted memories. In the days that followed, the school seemed different, as if it remembered the night's transgressions. Shadows lingered longer in the corners, and the cold spots never seemed to warm. The students tried to forget, to laugh it off as a product of their overactive imaginations, but sometimes, in the quiet moments of a lesson, the soft tap of unseen footsteps would echo through the room, a chilling reminder of the night they played with the unknown. Some games are better left unplayed, for their end is nowhere in sight. Tonight we've crossed the threshold of the ordinary into the realm of the unknown. In the echoing corridors of our first tale, the whispering hallways continue to murmur secrets past midnight. Is it merely the wind, or the voices of those long gone, still yearning to be heard? The mystery deepens, unresolved, as no one has yet to decipher the whispers or unveil their source. Moving on to our second chilling narrative, the vanishing teacher remains an enigma. One day here, the next, vanished without a trace. Despite numerous investigations, no evidence has surfaced, leaving behind a void filled with questions and a lingering sense of unease. What really happened to the teacher? The answer slips through our fingers like shadows at dusk. And then the midnight game, a game that should never have been played. Those who participated are forever changed, bound to a game with rules beyond our understanding. The air around this tale is heavy with the unanswered, the inexplicable. In the quiet of night, when shadows flicker and the wind whispers, remember these tales, for some mysteries are never meant to be solved.